Hello and welcome to It's Time to Talk. I am Andrew in this.
And I'm Anthony.
So today we have a few topics to talk about. We're going to talk about the marathon and all of those happenings, and also just some of the other tragic events that have happened around Boston this week.
Being the last week.
Yeah, last week, sorry. So I say we start off with the upside of, would you like to announce the winners of the marathon?
All right, so, forgive me on the names. We have, for the guys, Lalisa DeCisa with 2 hours, 10 minutes, and 23 seconds. That's a pretty impressive time. And the girls' time, Rita Jeptu, 2 hours, 26 minutes, and 25 seconds. And I'll do math out in a minute, but those are some pretty fast mile times.
That's pretty
especially
impressive.
Fast, 26.2 miles, let alone, yeah.
Wish I could run that fast.
That's pretty fast time. So now before we get into all of the bombing stuff and all of that, we're going to talk about the other things that actually went on during the week because, here in New England, we were sort of glued to the TV about marathon and all that stuff. So one of the things that actually happened that same day, they did mention it on the news, they didn't cover it a lot, there was actually a fire at the JFK Library in Boston. It was at the time when it first came out, it was considered a part terrorism. We were like, oh, well, this could probably be part of it. It was very unlikely because it was on the other side of Boston.
Just very convenient timing.
Yeah, it was more of a timing issue. And then later to find out it was only just a maintenance fire. It was really nothing else more than that.
False alarm.
False alarm, exactly. So I'll let you cover the next one. I wrote it down.
So the other thing that
God
happened
forbid
during
I
the
say
week
this.
was there was a blast and an explosion at a fertilizer plant out in West Texas, outside of Waco, where 14 people were killed and well over 200 injured. It is still very unclear as to what happened that caused this explosion, but it is very tragic still nonetheless.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. It was sort of weird, more explosions in the same week. I think that
It's just been a very destructive week.
this week, I think in general, has just been awful. Like
Last week.
It's last week now. But I think it's just been awful in general. It's just explosion here, explosion there, deaths there, car blew up. I don't know what's going on with this. So that covers the other two things that I had
Now,
in mind.
I guess this leads us into the big topic of the actual bombings at the marathon.
So I'm going to shoot out some facts for you, and then I want you to comment on them after I go through them. So the first bombing, that went off at 2:50 p.m. That was the first one. It was on Boylston Street, and it was in the middle of a crowd of people. And it was only yards away from the finish line. It was relatively close to the finish line. Then the second bomb went off 13 seconds later, a few hundred feet away. So, Andrew, if you had a motive, why would you do this?
I can't even imagine ever being in the mindset to even attack something like that. I mean, this is one of the biggest marathons around the country. Millions of people, thousands of people are brought in. It's just like 26,000 people run this, and it's just like a big event. And for somebody just to come and attack that is just insane.
I mean, you couldn't even call this an act of terrorism directly on the United States,
No,
because
it's over
this is
96
this is an international event. This is like saying, oh, let me go put a bomb in the Olympics. It's the same scale of it's like insulting every country in the world. These people just did.
Basically.
Then later that day, we got the briefs. We only got one brief. It was from Barack Obama. And right at the beginning, he never called it an act of terrorism, which I guess in part...
You don't want to jump to bold conclusions so fast.
Exactly. The next day, I think the governor said, we can't be jumping to conclusions, or it was the head of police of Boston. He said it. But it was this was just a really sad event. I honestly don't even have maximum comments on this. Two guys just walk in they were backpacks, they were homemade explosives.
Yeah, they had a whole bunch of just shrapnel inside of pressure cookers.
And just place them there. These people, they walked through people to get them out of the way, supposedly. I mean, this is all assumption, what I'm saying right now. And put the backpacks down in the middle of a crowd of people. And just like, oh, let me walk away before they blow up.
The worst part is I saw a picture. It was, I guess it was someone's photo that they had taken throughout the day, where you can just see, like, there was one of the 3 dead, was like an 8-year-old little boy.
Yeah, it was an 8-year-old boy.
You can see in the photo, there's the younger brother was placed in the bag, and he's like 5 people away from this boy who's just sitting there smiling, looking at the people running by, and that's just...
It was very awful. Like, these people obviously had something wrong with them. Now, let's get into I'm going to get into the suspects a little bit because, you know, I can pronounce names very well.
Have fun pronouncing this.
So, the 2 suspects were Tamerlan and Dzhokhar Tsarnaev from Russia, the Chechnya area. Chechnya. Which is apparently well known for terrorism or Islamic extremist area of the world.
Yeah, it's a country just full of like self-civil war of just different like even families themselves going at each other just over religious disputes.
And I know, and Islamic extremists, they just like absolutely hate us. We're like the worst people in the world, according to them. So their ages, Tamerlan was 26 and Dzhokhar was 19. I definitely, just guessing, would think that Tamerlan had a major influence on Dzhokhar.
It's hard to think that Dzhokhar would be like the one to lead this, where he was, I mean, I think I have this right, he was like a straight A student at UMass Dartmouth, he was on the wrestling team. He doesn't seem like somebody who would be the person to initiate that. I mean, he was there on a full scholarship.
Exactly. It's not to say, I believe released recently this week, I think Russia itself was saying that Tamerlan actually was, becoming rationalized, like he was becoming part of it, like becoming part of the, like, I don't even know how to say it, the Chechnyan like way.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I saw definitely was like the Russians were trying to warn us about them and how dangerous they were.
I mean, the way I look at this is Tamerlan just like completely played a big role in like when you're a younger sibling, you wanna you look up to your big brother. You look up to your big brother or big sister. Like you want to follow the same thing that they do. Like, oh well, they're succeeding. They must be doing something right. Let me do what they do. So when they have 26 to 19. I mean that's a big age range too.
7 years.
That's like, he must have had a ton of influence. I don't even know how to say. I can't describe it unless you have a sibling and you know. It's pretty bad. And just to give him the negative influence, I mean, like you said before, he was like a straight A student and he was going to college and just threw it all out to become a terrorist. I mean, or to follow his big brother's footsteps.
Yeah, it's a really depressing thought of just like this guy had a bright future and it's just gone now thanks to that 30 seconds.
Now, I want to say something that President Obama said the day of the bombing before we start talking about the week and the procedure that we had to go through.
Proceedings.
So he said, we will get to the bottom of this. We will find who did this, and we will find out why and why they did this. Any responsible individuals, any responsible groups will feel the full weight of justice. So right there, you can tell that we weren't going to let this one go as easy as...
This was not sliding. I mean...
This isn't, yeah.
We're one of those countries where if something happens, we will get you and we will find you and we will go take whatever it needs to hunt you down. And it was definitely evident showing, like, right up after that where, I mean, the FBI went crazy going after them. There was every state trooper, possibly all the police were here looking for this guy. I mean, it was the same with after 9/11 where it's just you mess with us and we will find you and hunt you down.
I mean... I think just jumping to the end really quick, is this like the first time we've ever caught like a terrorist in our country, like of this big of a degree? I really think it is.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first really huge terrorist attack on this scale in about 10 years since
9/11.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say it's not as bad as it was, but it's pretty bad. Like someone had the right state of mind to, come in and like
I mean, on the scale of 9/11, where like millions of people were killed, thousands of people killed, it may not be on that grand scale, but it's still a huge thing. It was still a devastating event. And I mean, yeah, it's definitely one of those things where you just can't let that slide, and you gotta take those people responsible.
So now we're going to start talking about like the week following, so Tuesday through Thursday into Friday, all that.
Friday evening.
So starting with Tuesday, April 16th, all the victims when the explosives went off, they were peppered with like pellets and nails, and some of them could be actually ball bearings, which are decent size.
All the debris that was inside the cooker that was able to go everywhere. Plus, there was still zippers from the backpack, so being pulled from people, and it was very.
It was. I'd imagine it to be. I mean, just very graphic. Even just to set off the bomb, like you probably could. You couldn't be within. I don't know.
Couldn't be in a close vicinity.
You couldn't even be within a close vicinity to even watch it go off without being hit by debris.
No, I mean, they were finding debris up on roofs 5 buildings down. And
5 buildings down and like 10 stories up. Like, whoever says like this is a small bomb is like, then obviously not thinking this one through. So then later that day, the president they addressed the bombings again. And this time, during the briefing, he actually called it an act of terrorism. What do you think that led, the viewers like us watching, what do you think that made us think?
It definitely leads you to the realization that this was an attack. This was an attack on the country and the world. And it wasn't just some freak thing or some guy that was out of his mind. This was a deliberate attack that was planned out and meant to cause damage.
I mean, I know, like, I was watching it in my household. We were, like, you couldn't even react. It was just like, all you could think was, why would someone do this?
Yeah, I was at work on Monday when this happened, and I was sitting there. We just happened to have the TV on, and it switched over to that, and it was just, like, everything just stopped. I mean, we work at a very upgoing, very fast-paced place.
Yeah.
And just to have everybody stopped, wrapped around a TV was crazy to see. It was just, like, no one could believe it.
I remember, like, the second it happening, we were outside fixing something in our yard, and our neighbor came over and was like, there was a bombing at the Boston Marathon. Go inside and watch your TV. So we went inside and watched, and sure enough, there was 2 explosions. And the fact that it was an act of terror just... I think it brought out the patriotism
It's
in
just
a lot
sickening that somebody could do that. But yeah, I mean, this definitely brought together Boston. The community just got together and rallied against this. And it was just a very strong thing to happen. We got together and pulled.
And I think it also hit home a very scary thing for a lot of people. I mean,
there's always that thought process of like, this will never happen to me, but then when it happens in your own backyard,
it's so close to home. Like, it was such a scary thought.
Yeah, I mean, we're only a couple miles away from this. I mean, you could have been there.
I know. I know some people that were like right down the street from the explosion or right across the street from the explosions, and they watched it and they didn't know what was going on. They were just like, people were running and just
I mean, like
away.
even you can see there was one of the runners who happened to, I guess, have his camera on him when he was running, and you can see the footage of like when the explosion goes off, and it's just like, just the runners keep running because it's like they have no idea what just happened.
I mean, I'd feel awful like if I was a runner, like. A bomb just blew up, and I ran 26.18 miles, and I can't finish the race now.
The one thing I saw that was really inspiring was there was a girl who was running. This is her first year ever running. And after this happened, I mean, like you saw, they closed the course. They wouldn't let people finish. But there was a guy who came up to her afterwards who had ran the race, and he's ran it before. And he had finished, and he decided he would give her the medal, telling her that like she finished anyway. And it was just like, that's just one of those inspiring things that, again, shows like how strong this brought people together.
Now, I want to talk about a little bit like the timing that the bomb went off. So the time that, like I said, it was 2:50 p.m., but the timing via the marathon time was 4 hours and 10 minutes, which is where most of the average people that are running are going to finish the race. Do you think that time was specific, like that? The bombers, they actually picked that time to go off?
It was timed for the most destruction because, yeah, like, I mean, like you said, like the winners finished in about 2 hours, and that's a very elite class people who are going to finish up there. The average person is going to take like 3 to 4 hours to run that, and I mean, like most of the crowd's going to be coming in at the same time, so I think it was just timed for the biggest boom.
See, now one of the things that aggravated me besides, the actual explosion was that after the bombs went off, they people were actually stealing like the silver, the jackets. I can't even think of it.
The medals.
Yeah, no, not the metal. They were stealing medals. They were stealing the blankets that they give the runners when they come in. I can't think of what they're called right now.
I have no idea what that is.
They were stealing like the blankets that they only give to the marathon runners when they finish the race because you're hot and sweating and dehydrating and.
I mean, it's always the same thing with that. Like even, I mean, going back to like Hurricane Katrina, when like people's houses are flooding, people are going in and stealing TVs and stuff like that. I think it's just like that mindset of like when panic sets in, what do you have?
But I mean, like, I don't know. It aggravated me a lot. Like, just you're almost just as bad as the people that blew up the marathon. No offense to anyone that went in there and started stealing stuff after explosions. Like, we're in a time of terror, and that's the first thing on your mind.
It's like it's a very dangerous situation. People are afraid, and their first thought is just, "What can I get for free?" That's
upsetting. All right, so since we completely moved backwards in time, we're gonna jump ahead a few days. So Thursday, April 18th. So the FBI released the photos of the suspects, and they were later relatively quickly identified.
That was within a couple hours. Yeah. The thing is, too, though, like, I mean, I think it was Friday or Saturday evening, they did an interview with, like, some of the people that the younger brother went to school with. And it was just, like, people saw these photos, and it was, like, even people realized it right away, but, like, they didn't notice it was them. But, like, the good thing is, like, these went out on Facebook, these went out on Twitter. It was launched on everything where people are going to see it very easily. And I think it's good that we're in a time
It's a good thing you said that, because the next thing that I have written down is social media.
Yeah, I mean,
and how... If we didn't have social media, how fast do you think we would have even found him?
I mean, he would have been found, but it would have taken much longer. Whereas, like, someone would have had to have came home and turned on the TV to find that. Whereas, I mean, there's people who sit at work on Facebook where they have time to kill, or almost everyone now has a smartphone where Facebook goes to their phone and you'll get these alerts. You'll just sign on, and I think people just saw it and noticed it almost instantly.
I mean, I think the people that identified the two suspects, they were they saw them on social media networks and like, oh, well, that looks like one of the people that I know. And I know after the FBI released the photos, they opened up their tip line, which I'm sure the second that tip line opened, there was like hundreds of phone calls saying like, oh, well, this guy looks like this guy. Oh, yeah. I think I went to school with him.
And you just gotta sift through all that. But I mean, the other thing that was good too is, I mean, once again, I was at work, but like we had the TV on, and I mean, they were just running those photos all day where just anybody at any point could have seen that, just trying to make sure that everybody was able to see these photos to find these people, which again, it shows how dedicated we were to getting these guys.
And I mean, going back, I think social media is definitely one of the like best, I'm not gonna say best, I'm gonna say moderate way to get stuff out there. Because you also have to remember, there are those people on Facebook who intentionally put up false stuff too. And I'm sure anyone who has a Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, or any,
Flickr.
Social network, they know exactly what I'm talking about. There are those like, just false things. Anything can be photoshopped.
Yeah, I mean, anything can be photoshopped in these days. You can easily misquote things. You can do whatever you need to make these informations. Plus, and something like that where, I mean, like Monday night, there was already rumors being spread about different things where people were saying it was Korea and stuff like that. And it's just like, you sign on Facebook and you see that, and people fall for that.
The people are like, yeah, that seems believable, and they just fall for it. They don't put a second thought into it. Yeah. I mean, that's like the really big issue that I saw with social media. But now what I want to do is I want to bring social media, we're going to go back in time again. So social media, like at the time of the bombings. Now, what I want to know, do you think it was right for the people to, right after the explosions, take a picture of, dead people on the ground or the gruesome scene and put it right up on the internet?
No, I mean, there's a certain respect that you need to have about this, where it's like, I mean, that's somebody suffering, or that's somebody whose life was just ended, and I mean, you're putting up there for music. Like, there's people out there who were like just having jokes about these things. They were photoshopping pictures into like actual like video footage of this, like to make like a funny joke, and it was just people were.
I mean, going back like right, I think like 13 seconds after the explosion, there was a picture up. Like that's a little ridiculous.
The fact that you have that much access is...
I mean, let's look at it this way. what if Billy's standing there and is blown up by the bomb, right? And someone's taking a picture, and Auntie Joe is like, what? She's like, oh well, my nephew's at the marathon, and she sees the picture of Billy bleeding on the ground before
That's not the way that you
before
wanna...
that she even gets a phone call, like that leaves a lot
And not
of
even
panic
that
between
issue
people.
too. It's just like the fact of like, again, that's somebody who's hurt, or that's somebody who's dead, and you're just gonna look at this for amusement. Like somebody's putting that up there, and it's just like
Someone wants to be that one person to get they want to be the center of attention.
Yeah.
I think that plays definitely
it's like
in.
a photo flies. But then like again, going back to that, like there was pictures that people like were captioning. Like there was an entire subreddit that was made for ruining these things and just like making terrible, terrible jokes.
It was just awful. So off of social media, now we're going to go back into the future. Thursday night.
Thursday night?
Sorry. Thursday night
Day of the week.
into Friday morning. So the Thursday night, the suspects, they went to a 7-Eleven, and the media instantly believed that they robbed the 7-Eleven, even though that wasn't true. They found out that it wasn't later.
They bought some chips and a soda.
Yeah. Then
Red Bull.
right after that, there was a shootout between an MIT cop and the two of them.
And unfortunately, the MIT officer was killed for that. He was a 26-year-old who was actually applying for Somerville Police, which actually I saw in the news this morning as I was leaving, that in honor of him, the Somerville Police are going to actually kind of enlist him to give him his dream of being an officer, at least.
I mean, it was awful. Like now, so not only did they, go and blow up a marathon, now they're killing police officers. It's not a good thing. And this was in Watertown.
This one happened in Somerville, or Cambridge.
So I believe the MIT cop shot Tamerlan, the older one, suspect number one, the 26.
Nope, that happened later than that. It happened where there was the gun battle that happened at MIT, which led out into the streets of Cambridge,
That's
where
right.
then all the officers came in, and then that's where most of the shootouts happened. And then from there, it actually made its way to Watertown, where the first brother was shot, where Tamerlan was shot. And then from there, Dzhokhar took off from there. But no, the first injury to the brother was until Watertown.
Yeah, that was later.
They
My
tore
fault.
through the streets.
But the other thing that was found out later, I still don't know we don't know this is how Tamerlan died or anything, but Dzhokhar ran him over.
Yeah, in efforts to leave the scene, I think after his brother was already down, he was trying to get out of there, and he just left him for dead, ran him over with a car, and took off.
I mean, I know earlier in the show we were talking about, how you probably idolize your older sibling, you want to follow their footsteps.
I think,
and
and at that point, though, it's just like a you're on your own trying to survive thing. I mean, you have bullets flying at you from hundreds of officers. I think he was just trying to get out of Dodge.
I mean, just a little bit of a punch in the face, don't you think?
I mean, yeah.
So after that, one of the things that aggravated me right after he got away was he got away.
They had that city on lockdown. There's they were searching that place down. He was on lockdown.
We should have had him at like 2 a.m.
Well, that didn't, the shootout.
It didn't happen.
His brother got shot at like 3:30.
Close enough. 4 a.m. We should have had him. That's. I mean, I'm not rashing on the cops or anything, but he is right in front of you. He is on the ground and he's standing there, and you're.
Well, they were behind cover. I mean, yeah, there's definitely one of those. The thing is, though, you're also being shot back at. They were throwing like grenades and plastic explosives back at them. There was explosions going off everywhere, and the main focus of the officers was their safety. I mean, yeah, if he can run from it, but they're trying to protect their own too as well. And I mean, it was a very dangerous situation. They were trying to do it as safely as possible.
Oh, it's definitely dangerous.
I mean, this isn't like a game of Call of Duty where you can run up through and just kind of go after them.
I mean, they were throwing out, they were throwing out more pressure. They were throwing
out
it
was pipe bombs and stuff like that.
They were throwing more pipe bombs out at the cops while this was all happening and while they were driving. But just to reference,
the other thing to watch out too is that you have to keep public safety in mind too, where if you start running after them and running through these houses, there was people. This just happened on someone's street. There's people everywhere. So I think the officers' more focus was on the safety of the people around them. I mean, if they can keep this guy contained firing at them, that's one thing. But as soon as they start chasing him, he starts firing on houses. That's innocent people who are going to get taken.
And for people, and the part that I was getting, how they let him get away. Here's what I want you to think about. So Andrew, you've been to a concert, right?
Yeah.
All right. And have you been like really close to the front, like right next to the celebrity, pretty much? Or the singer. Yeah. So I want you to take that feeling, like you're right there, for that amount of time, like what, 4 hours? Tops?
Something like that.
3 to 4 hours. Now,
we'll be at one tomorrow.
Like a week later, you're like, wow, I was this close to that. I think that pretty much describes the feeling that, like the cops had when he got away. Like they were that close to catching him, let alone later.
The other thing you also have to watch out for too is that he's firing back at you. So they're really not sitting there top shot aiming. They're trying to
where they have hundreds of officers, you think they'd surround him. That's the only thing that got to me.
I mean, there's really only so much you can do in that one.
So moving on from the shootout, the state of Massachusetts then shut down Boston for a whole day to issue a manhunt for Joe Carr. And they shut down the transportation too. Now,
the entire city of Boston was locked down. No one was allowed in or out. They were trying to search. This is actually why they were doing it. Whereas they were trying to search, they were going house to house through yards. And actually, that's one of those things that surprised me. Where, to jump ahead a little bit, he was found in somebody's backyard.
That's scary.
This is one of those things that scared me. It was like these officers were going right through house to house. Every house, they had that entire city locked down. They were going right through the city of Boston, ripping everything apart, trying to find anything they could, any trace of this guy. And he was found in a boat in the backyard of somebody's guy. You have to think that, like, if you were with these cops, like, ripping through these houses, going through, that one of the places that you would check was a boat. I mean, everyone was on lockdown. There's the guy who found him. I mean, he was just going out to get a cigarette. Had he not gone out to smoke, they never would have seen this.
We don't know how long it would have taken to find him. I mean, maybe he was going out to, take his boat out for the next day. Like, you don't know.
Yeah.
This after that just becomes a world of possibilities. Like, there's no, like specific things.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good thing. I mean, the good thing was that they shut this down where, I mean, had he tried to get out anywhere, he wasn't going anywhere because he would be the only car on the road other than the state troopers. I mean, they had public transportation locked down, so if he even tried to get in the subway, he wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was a very helpful thing that the officers were able to do that.
One of the things that I wanted to talk about is how Boston just completely shut their city down. Like
That was scary to see with like the live cameras where it just looked like it was a picture because nothing was changing.
It was just dead.
Boston was a ghost town.
Now, I want to talk about how much money do you think that was to shut it down?
Millions. Finding this guy took millions of dollars in resources. I mean, they had every state trooper. They had people coming in from New Hampshire to do this, where that cost lots of money. And I mean, to lock down every street corner is... I mean, the other thing, too, was, I think we skipped over it, but I mean, I think it was either Tuesday or Wednesday morning. I mean, the president was in town to come and visit all the victims of that, and even locking that down with him still out there was a very dangerous and risky thing.
So I remember, Thursday, just in general, so they told these cities to go down in lockdown. They told like Watertown and Cambridge, and then all of their surrounding towns to go in lockdown.
The one good thing about that too was because they were in lockdown. I mean, the younger brother Jakar was only found a quarter of a mile away from this, where that shows like how effective this was. Where he knew he had to just hide. He had nowhere to go.
I mean, yeah, he was pretty much just.
He was out of luck.
So then.
Should we move into Friday?
Yeah. Well, there's really no Friday.
Friday was the day he was caught.
Was it?
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean Friday was. Friday they were the tip was called in where they a neighbor happened to see the neighbor's boat. They had the boat was wrapped and it had all the tie downs on it, and the neighbor happened to notice that one of the ties were cut and that there was blood on the side of the boat and a ladder was down where a ladder shouldn't be if it's just docked in your yard. So he called the officers where so officers came in, they checked it out, they had the thermal vision and they could see that in fact there was somebody hiding in there. who was believed to be the younger brother, with signs of blood on the thing, was very well injured. He was hurt. I mean, he was.
And just for a time frame when we caught him, that was at 7:30 at night.
Later than that. Because
No.
I remember I came home. I had an event that I had to be at where I came home. It was about 9 o'clock when I came home to see the news where it was actually breaking out and developing. So he was caught around 9:30, I think. You may have had the timing a little off. Yeah, because I came home. I was home around 9 o'clock, and I just planted myself in front of the TV, and they had the news coverage where they had him surrounded. They brought in hostage negotiators to come in. But it was a dangerous situation where he was armed. I mean, he had nothing to lose. And that could have been a very dangerous situation, which it was, thank God that they had the negotiators. They had to be able to talk him out.
I mean, either way, the point I was trying to make here was he's been on the run since Monday. Monday night. That's, a work week.
Well, I mean, it's better that it was only the 4 days, whereas, with Osama bin Laden, it was well over 5,000 days. I think I'd rather take the 4 days. I mean, you still
But
have
that's
to,
true. That was on a different.
You still have to collect all
continent.
you still have to collect all the evidence. You got to be able to find him. I mean, Watertown is a relatively large community, and just be able to sweep it that thoroughly does take time.
And I think.
And this was somebody who was intended not to be found.
I think it was remarkable that we found it like 24 hours after we released the photos. That's
just the time scale. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it may have taken 4 days to get him, but it took that time to get all the evidence. Whereas, once, like you said, it was within about a little over 24 hours of the photo being released, he was taken down.
And I know in Tuesday, what was it? Joe Carr went back to college and he went to a party.
Back to class.
He went back to a class and had a party. And then once he realized that his picture was being released, then he got scared. Then that's when he started running.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a good thing that we were able to find him relatively quickly, and that he's finally away. We can make him pay for this. We'll get what we need out of him. But I mean, I think the only thing is, he was injured from this shootout. I mean, he ended up actually trying to take his own life. And I think that may have been what actually gave him up, because he just shot himself through the back of the throat, and he was hurt badly, and I think he realized that he was going to die. And that may have been something that helped.
I think a couple of other situations that came in, I think it was it Tuesday? No, it was, I forget what day it was, when the uncle came out and spoke.
Thursday morning.
And he was in Maryland, and he was saying he was very mad.
Friday morning, sorry.
What was it?
Friday morning.
Friday morning. He was a very angry. He was just very mad.
He was
disappointed. He was mad for his family.
Yeah,
and
like we were saying earlier, they come from a place that's very religious. I mean, they were Muslim, and he was just trying to put out the fact that, first of all, his nephew just went and did this heinous thing. But it's bringing shame on the family. It's bringing stuff back to them. He just took lies, and I think that's something that you can't take lightly. He was not too happy with him. He was telling in the press coverage that I was watching, he was just telling his nephew just to give himself up and pray for forgiveness, because that's all you can do.
And I like the fact that you said that he was saying that he had to give himself up, because the father said the same thing before the uncle came out over a phone call from Russia. He was like, well, I wouldn't expect, Tamerlan to do this. I wouldn't expect Joe Carr to do this. But Joe Carr turned himself in.
Yeah, it's like he was just trying to make sure that they could redeem themselves. They were trying to keep him safe where, if he's on the run and he's ruining himself, he just ruined his life. I think they were just kind of hoping that if he begged for forgiveness, he can maybe be seen a little bit better in the public eye. And, he's bringing shame to everybody right there. And he just ruined many people's lives. Thousands of people are devastated from this, and it's just.
So now the only thing that we have to wait for is for him to say why he did it.
It's gonna take a little while.
But you know what? I think even if we get him to say, "Oh, well, I did this because," it's not going to be as much information as we think it is.
It's not going to change anything either. You're not going to be able to. All you can hope to do is that he gives up if he was working with anybody, and we can start to watch them to prevent anything, but it's not.
And it's almost 100% that they definitely
late.
didn't do this alone, because they found more explosive devices laced.
at least the good thing was that came out of this. I mean, he's down. It definitely brought the community together. I mean, I was seeing footage from Bruins games and Red Sox games where everyone was speaking up for this. They had at one of the Bruins games, they went to do the
Boston
national
Strong.
anthem, and it was just like there was a video. It was just like it brought chills to you, where they just cut out the national anthem, and it was just the entire everyone in attendance was saying this, and it just shows you like how like together everyone is and brought to this, and it just gives you chills. And then David Ortiz's speech at the Red Sox the other day.
It's, FCC won't even censor it because they said it came from the heart. So, I mean, that's there's really no other way to say it. I mean, when you experience something like this, like the feelings that are involved, it's.
I mean, Boston's a very tough city, and this is making them even stronger. It's bringing them back.
I mean, I'm like quoting Twitter / anything on this, but I mean, we're probably one of the only cities that will actually say, you know, we'll drop everything to find this. I mean, we dropped everything.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I noticed too, like, was throughout the, I think we played Seattle for that Bruins game, and I mean, when they were warming up, they had their Bruins jerseys on. Other teams have been dedicating games to them. I think New York was singing Sweet Caroline at one of their games. I mean, it's just like it's just showing that they're all pulling for this, and it's definitely gonna. I mean, it's gonna take time, but people are rallying together and really.
I mean, we felt it right here, but I mean, like you said, people all over the country, they were totally in with us. They were in it all the way. I mean, that's where the trend, I believe it was #BostonStrong right on Twitter and all that. It just went up.
Yeah, I mean, especially like with New York, where they have already been through this. It's just like them doing that kind of shows. It's just like, we know how you feel,
Exactly.
and we're here.
Exactly. So I think that covers everything that we had planned for today.
We've definitely gone through everything. I'm sure that when more comes out, we'll definitely talk about this a little bit more, just to give opinion on it a little bit more. But I mean, as of right now, what we know, I think that's really all you can do.
I think it is. So I'll leave you with the sign off too.
All right, guys. So if you like this, you can like us on Facebook.com / It's Time to Talk, or on YouTube at YouTube.com / WPMCITT.
Is it WPMC? It's Time to Talk on Facebook? I think it is. I don't know. We'll put up
Something
the
like
graphic. You'll see it.
We'll just
right
cut
here.
this.
See right here. Just.
You can like us. You can like us at this link here.
Thank you for watching our season 2 opener, and we will see you.
I'm sure that just sounded amazing.
At one point. Bye-bye.
Bye.